You're a better golfer than you used to be, but your scores don't show it. You've improved, you know you have, but your handicap isn't budging. You've put in the practice time, but you just can't shoot a new low round. Sound familiar? Me too. In this video, I explore the reasons why being better at golf doesn't necessarily equate to better scores. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to explore something which has been plaguing me in my golf game and clearly is something which also affects a lot of other golfers out there, because just a quick Google of this kind of thing reveals lots and lots of frustrated golfers out there on YouTube or Reddit trying to answer this exact question of why it is that we can think or know that we are better at golf, but the scores just don't show it. I have my trusty emotional support wedge here with me for this one, because this is absolutely something which I have been suffering with for the past few months, playing quite a lot of golf, practicing, and being fairly convinced that I am better than I ever have been before at the game, but my scores just don't reflect that. In the autumn of last year, I was shooting regularly around 80 or so, and this year I think I've broken 85 once, despite, as I say, being fairly convinced that I'm a better player now than I was then. And evidently this is a sentiment that a lot of people share, not just on the internet, but from players I speak to at the course as well. So I've come up with 7 reasons why I think this phenomenon exists in golf almost uniquely versus other sports. And I wanted to run through them here today, see if they resonate with any of you out there, or what alternative explanations you might have for this incredibly frustrating phenomenon. If you are new to the channel, hello, I am Joel. I am going through a golf life crisis and documenting that here for everyone to see on YouTube. So if that sounds interesting, or if you enjoy this or any of the other videos, please do consider dropping a like, a comment, and subscribing to follow along with this journey. So the first thing, and this is something that I touched on in my why is it so hard to get better at golf video, is plate spinning or skill juggling or whatever it is you might want to call it. But it's essentially this idea that golf isn't just one thing. It's not even a few different things. It's many different skills and disciplines all mixed together, and to improve you have to basically get better at all of them, which is incredibly difficult. So you not only have to improve your driving, but also your approach play, your chipping, your putting, your pitching, your bunkers, etc. And then beyond even the physical, technical skills, there are things like course strategy and mindset and all of the other variables that go into golf improvement. The trouble with this is that even if you do improve them, you then have to get them all to show up together on the course at the same time for that improvement to translate into better scores. I'm sure we can all relate to that round where you drove it well but putted terribly, or you saved yourself a bunch of strokes on the green but you couldn't get off the tee, or any other kind of painful mix and match scenario with golf's different skills. Or it might be that you hit the ball well but you just picked bad targets or couldn't judge the conditions properly, or you had one bad hole and then completely head cased and blew up the rest of the round even though you were actually playing okay. Getting better at any one of these things is difficult, and putting the time in to improve one aspect of them obviously detracts from the time you have to work on the others. But even if you do manage to upgrade all of your kind of skill bars across your game of golf, understanding that that might not translate into better scores, or that it might not do so immediately, I think is something that we just have to ultimately accept, even if it is incredibly frustrating to do so. The second thing is something that I think golfers give too much credence to round, but not enough over the long term, and that essentially is luck. The role of luck in golf cannot really be overstated. As a game which is played outside in variable conditions on varying lies and varying wind speeds and things like that, means that a significant amount of every round of golf is left up to chance, much as we might not like to admit it to ourselves. The difference in a perceived good score or bad score could genuinely be the difference between 2 gusts of wind, meaning that your ball failed to clear a bunker, you took 3 shots to get out of it and took a triple versus an easy par, or your ball hit a bank and kicked left out of bounds instead of right onto the edge of the fairway. That could mean you shot a 88 instead of an 82, which for you could be a disaster. Or it could be the difference between a 99 and breaking 100 for the first time, or a stinky 106. fine margins, the finest of margins, time and again, can be the difference for good and bad in our golf games. Sometimes we probably fail to look upon luck's role in helping us shoot our good scores, but it's certainly something to take into consideration if there is a consistent run of bad scores that you're failing to be able to explain to yourself. Maybe you've just been getting really unlucky a few times in a row and you're not actually playing as badly as the scores would seem. When I was researching this video and looking into various explanations for this phenomenon, this next thing was the one which really stood out to me and kind of blew my mind a little bit, which is maybe your scores are getting better, you just haven't realized it. We focus so much on handicap in golf that sometimes if that's not moving, or maybe if it's even going in the wrong direction, we think we're scoring badly, but maybe we're not. There are two other things in addition to handicap which are worth looking at, and looking into my own stats helped me realize that actually I am playing better, just in a kind of invisible way. The first is fairly straightforward, and it's probably something that you are already looking at, and that is scoring average. Now, handicaps being what they are, taking the best 8 scores from your most recent 20, that means that the other 12 in there might be kind of invisible to you if you're just following your handicap graph. But the scoring average of your last 20 rounds, or even your last 6 or 12 months worth of rounds, can reveal something different. For instance, my scoring average is more than 3 strokes lower than it was last year, but my low scores this year are nowhere near as good as my lowest scores were last year. So I feel like I'm not scoring as well, even though actually on average, rather than handicap, I definitely am. And the other thing I looked into is this concept of an anti-cap.
Multipass.
Now, a handicap being the average of your best 8 rounds of your most recent 20, an anti-cap
Multipass
is the average of your worst 12 of your most recent 20. And that to me was extremely eye-opening. Running the numbers on my worst rounds of the year versus my worst rounds of last year made it very clear that I am in fact a better golfer. It just doesn't show up in the numbers that I look at day to day. My anti-cap
Multipass
for 2025 so far versus 2024 was more than 11 shots better, which tells you that I am a better golfer, less prone to blow-ups, terrible scores, and massive upward spikes on my handicap graph. Yes, the lows aren't as low, but the highs are nowhere near as high, and that is a very, very real indicator of golfing improvement, even if we would all like to shoot new personal bests. Something else which can factor in as we get more comfortable playing golf, more experienced, is that we can start to just play harder courses, or new courses, or even the same course from different tees. My scoring average at my home club hasn't moved much this year versus last, but most of my rounds this year have been off the back competition tees, which are nearly 600 yards longer than the yellow members tees. So I'm playing better because I'm scoring the same, just from a harder tee box. Additionally, I've played at a number of new courses this year, some of which have been extremely challenging with much higher slope ratings than I'm used to. But again, an 88 looks the same there as it does at my home course, but actually the differential would be much lower. On a couple of occasions where I've gone back to easier courses that I haven't played for a year or so, I've shot scores which have been 5, sometimes 10 or even 15 strokes better than when I first visited there. Again, an indication that my golf game is in a better place than it was, even if it doesn't feel like that week to week. Playing new courses that you've never seen before is inherently more challenging than courses you know well. And while it's great to get out there at new venues, it's great to challenge ourselves with harder tee boxes, you shouldn't forget that those things are in fact a challenge. So even if your scores might be the same or higher than you're used to, you might actually still be playing better. Another thing which occurred to me when looking at reasons for this was, and this will vary wildly from golfer to golfer, but you just might be becoming much stricter with yourself in terms of adherence to the rules of golf versus giving yourself a break for a casual round. Maybe you've stopped giving yourself gimmies, or maybe they've just become less generous.
This is a technique I like to call a give me, because I've given myself a better score.
Maybe you're actually playing 3 off the tee rather than dropping one down there. Maybe you've stopped doing breakfast balls, or maybe you used to give yourself mulligans or just take an easier lie if your ball was buried in a bush. This is something that some golfers will do and obviously some won't. Some people are sticklers for the rules from the off and some never really play by the rules properly. But if you're not giving yourself even 1 or 2 breaks that you might used to have, that could be the difference between 3, 5 shots on your round. Again, your score will look uglier, but you're probably playing better golf in accordance with the rules of the sport. That just doesn't show up necessarily in the number you're writing on your card at the end. People often talk about playing golf or playing golf swing, and this kind of dichotomy also relates to golfing improvement. You might be better at golf shot, but maybe you're not actually better at golf as a whole. You might be a better ball striker, you might have better distance control, you might be better at impact fundamentals, hitting the center of the club face or controlling the direction of your ball. But maybe you're not better at course strategy. Maybe you're not better at keeping your head in the game when things start to go awry. Maybe your focus is still wandering. Maybe you still haven't developed a consistent pre-shot routine, or you get put off when there are players behind you or when you're trying to play through a group. All of these things massively affect your score in a round of golf, but they're things that don't necessarily get reflected in your performance on the range or while you're practicing. You genuinely might be much better at controlling the dispersion of your driver or hitting your irons consistently, or your short game might be much improved from where it was a few months ago. All of that can be true, but you might not be better at actually posting a lower number, because there are a bunch of things beyond the technical and beyond even the skill development which go into the scores that you're able to shoot. And then finally, maybe you're just not better.
How come you suck?
Maybe you're not better at golf, but you know more. Knowledge can be both a blessing and a curse when it comes to golf. And maybe you're just aware of what you're doing wrong, even though you haven't developed the skill to fix it. You might know that you're hitting one off the heel and you need to hit it off the centre more. You might know that your ground contact wasn't great on that one and it needs to be better. You might know these things, but just not have developed the skill to put it right. And again, that's not something to get down about. Knowing what you're not doing or knowing what you need to do is an important part of developing skills. Without the right intention, it's almost impossible to have the right execution. But it might just be that there's a gap in your psychological development and your skill development at the game. I think this is why so many people tie themselves up in knots watching swing videos on YouTube or reading how to improve articles on the internet. You think you're getting better by absorbing all of this knowledge, but you're not actually able to translate it into swing changes or skill upgrades or your development as a player. I know this is something that I have been and probably to an extent am still guilty of. So I think it's important to understand the difference between better knowledge and being a better player. So those are the 7 reasons I've come up with for this phenomenon of why it is possible to be a better golfer without posting better scores. It's maddening, it's frustrating, and it's a place that I very much find myself in at the moment with, I'm fully aware, a lot of other golfers out there. But what about you? Which of these reasons resonate with you the most? Which have I missed? Which would you disagree with? Please do let me know in the comments. And if you have enjoyed the video or gotten any value out of it, I would love it if you would consider subscribing to the channel, and I will see you in the next one.